Does anyone remember Trollhunters, Tales of Arcadia? Really popular at one point, I want to say around 2017, 2018. But after Rise of the Titans, I remember it kind of falling off. But something I always do remember is the really cool Amulet of Daylight, the primary tool used by our main hero, and I kind of want to talk about it. So, without any further ado, this is the Amulet of Daylight. A piece of jewelry, I guess, that was made by Merlin for the Troll Hunter to use in order to combat any supernatural evils in the world and keep the trolls safe. Kind of weird naming it Troll Hunter, but what you gonna do? And it was later destroyed and then rebuilt by Acaridian scientists, specifically the former prince of Acaridian. Something else to note is that the Amulet of Daylight is pretty neat. The original one was made by melting down Morgana's hand, yes, I'm serious, and using that combined with a bunch of other magic to forge the Amulet of Daylight in order to summon the Armor of Daylight. But outside of the just summoning the armor, it has some pretty nifty abilities. Like, for instance, the amulet cannot be given up by the current troll hunter. Anytime it is thrown away, it will immediately return to the thrower's hand. In addition to that, it can also be summoned to the user at any time as long as it hasn't been stolen. That's another thing. It can be stolen, and when that happens, it is practically impossible to get back outside of going out to find it yourself, or under very specific circumstances, such as a life or death situation. It is also shown, the rebuilt version is also shown to have the ability to be called to the user at any time, regardless of if it's nearby or not. It can also have multiple different stones plugged into the back of it to give the armor multiple different abilities, such as cloning itself, enhanced strength, or even just unlocking new weapons for the armor that we'll talk about later. Something else to note is that it can send off a blast of sunlight in order to send enemies back. Something else is the amulet was made by Merlin to have a degree of will. Now, it can't straight up think for itself, but it will actively seek out and call out to the nearest person who exhibits the qualities of a good troll hunter, as seen with Jim Lake Jr. and Toby. All that said, I think we should get into its primary function, which is the Armor of Daylight. The Armor of Daylight is activated via the incantation, "For the glory of Merlin, daylight is mine to command." The armor is created out of sunlight and as well as the sword being created from sunlight, making it extremely effective against any creatures of the dark, such as trolls, goblins, changelings, anything like that. The armor can also only be removed by the user or by Merlin. If anyone other than the user attempts to remove the armor from them, they will be shot back via a blast of sunlight. There are a few different upgrades that can be granted to the armor via the triumvirate stones. Those being the glaives, two knives that combine together to create a throwing boomerang type disc thing, the shield, which is exactly what it sounds like, a shield made of daylight, and the helmet, which really seems like it should be a basic function, but whatever. So, and something else to note is that despite the fact that the armor is made of sunlight, when a troll uses the armor, it does not harm them, but they can still be harmed by naturally occurring sunlight. There are also several other modes that it can activate, and we'll be talking about that right now. The first alternate mode we have is the Armor of Eclipse. Its activation phrase is, "For the doom of Gunmar, Eclipse is mine to command." And despite the name being the Armor of Eclipse, the phrase saying "Eclipse is mine to command," it's still made of daylight. And the only real major bonus this armor provides is that it has the ability to permanently kill Gunmar. And that in and of itself is a very powerful ability considering how strong Gunmar is, but outside of that, it is basically the same armor as before. As for the process of unlocking this armor, if you recall, I mentioned the triumvirate stones previously. Once all three have been attained, the activation phrase changes and allows the user to activate the Armor of Eclipse. We see Jim do this, though it is unclear if any previous Trollhunter has been able to activate this form through another means or through the same means. So real quick, I'm also just going to mention there is another mode that the armor can use, but it appears in a single novel with no images, so I can't give you a visual. It supposedly looks like similar to the normal armor. It's the Armor of Moonlight. It comes with a bow made of daylight. The armor is still made of daylight. It was unlocked by putting 6 stones found in a museum, and really the only other information I have on it is that it let him jump very high. Not much else to say on it, so I'm just gonna
Last up on the list
is the Magic Tech Armor. Its activation incantation is, "For the good of all, daylight is mine to command." And unfortunately, this is the one I have the least to say about, including the Moonlight Armor, which is really sad. It only appeared in Rise of the Titans for one fight, and it wasn't even strong enough to defeat the enemy that Jim was facing. It still took Toby driving the anti-magic wave generator underneath them in order for both of their powers to get canceled out, and Jim could win then. Something to note is that this amulet is actually powered by the Excalibur that Jim had pulled out of the stone with the help of 8 of his other companions. And it was quite powerful when in the hands of Arthur, at the very least. We, once again, barely get to see the sword used. It was relatively strong based on who Jim was fighting, that being one of the Primordials, but that's really all I can say on it, on whether or not it really boosted his strength at all. It was summoned via the rebuilt Amulet of Daylight using Acaridian technology in addition to troll magic and human magic. And that's really all I have to say about it. Doesn't even let him jump super high. That said, I think I'll bring this video to a close. Thank you all for watching, and have a wonderful day.
傷ついて嘘が下手なくせに笑えない笑顔を見せた I love you をろくに